Welcome to the Autism Grown Up podcast, a podcast to help you wherever you are to begin with adulthood in mind. I'm Dr. Tara Regan, an autism researcher, coach, and big sister to two adult brothers on the autism spectrum. For the last 10 years, I've helped people on the autism spectrum, their families, and professionals from around the world navigate their day-to-day lives and work, and in that time, I've watched countless smart, brave, and capable people feel overwhelmed, underprepared, and totally stressed out by the cliff after high school. I believe that we can build our own bridges to adulthood and that you don't have to settle for just getting by. That's why each week I'm here to help guide and support you as you create or help create a life and work experience that actually nurtures and develops your potential and the autistic adult in your life's potential through knowing yourself, strategies, and support. Thank you for listening. Today in episode 1, I am sharing all about what Autism Grown Up is, what we're going to be doing as a podcast, so my vision and aims for the podcast, and my goals to get more resources to autistic adults, families, and professionals. So for today's episode, I just wanted to say hello, introduce myself, and share my vision and goals for this podcast. For those of you who aren't familiar with Autism Grown Up, it is a website and education resource for autistic adults, family members, and professionals to get resources about adulthood. That's a huge gap I've found as a sibling and professional in this field, is that we don't really have a lot of resources to help us navigate preparing for adulthood or even just the whole adulthood span of things, which is pretty bizarre, right? Because adulthood is the longest span of our lifespan. Let me first introduce myself, since I just introduced Autism Grown Up first, to give you all an idea of where I'm coming from as a professional and as a family member of two brothers on the autism spectrum. I'm Dr. Tara Regan, and I have two younger brothers on the autism spectrum, Tyler, who is 27, and Tanner, who is 19. Tanner just recently graduated from high school last year, and both of them are living at home, living it up on their iPads, and we are trying to find ways to help them and work together with them to create meaningful lives together. And it's a challenge for sure, and this is something we knew has been coming our way for a very long time, and we're just trying to do the best we can, which is just like every single one of you guys who are listening right now. We're all trying the best we can to navigate day-to-day lives. And so that's also a main reason of why I started pursuing and looking into the autism field, or what types of professions were even out there. As my brothers grew up, we encountered lots of different types of professionals, and including, of course, doctors, audiologists, neurologists, teachers, special educators, and speech language pathologists, OTs, you name it. You name a profession that we typically come across in autism, and I bet we have done that. Both my brothers were diagnosed with autism in the 90s or early 2000s in North Dakota, where my dad was stationed in the Air Force. And so we were lucky to have resources up there to help us navigate the autism diagnosis, because both of my brothers were diagnosed around the age of 3 or so. And when we moved down to North Carolina, we realized that there was such a huge difference in resources. And I think that's what kind of sparked my interest in looking more into more of a human services field. I'd always been interested in psychology as well, and so as I was in college, I learned a bit about the services that my state offers through a place called Camp Royal, and that's a place where I worked at for a very long time, and still do every now and then, and that was really what sparked me into getting into autism. Getting into the research, I stayed in school and got my master's degree in social work, and then I went on to get my PhD in education, focusing on special education and autism. And I wrapped that up last year, and as my youngest brother was also graduating from school, we reached another roadblock for my brothers. Another great opportunity for them. They both got off the waiting list for services and are now navigating this realm of adult services with Medicaid providing the funding. And so both of my brothers are now in day programs, and they go Monday, Wednesday, Friday. They also receive respite services, which is something I now provide, and I want to share that process too of what our experiences have been like navigating the wait list, navigating adult services, figuring out what services were a good match, what organizations to work with, all of those things. Those are the things I want to talk about in this podcast, along with a variety of topics that I've gotten into on my blog, but want to share in an audio form to get to know me a little bit better and get to know you a little bit better. And so that's how this podcast was born. It's another way to make my blog and these topics more accessible to a larger audience. That's one of the major goals of this podcast. Another one is to be able to interview people live and share their experiences as autistic adults, as siblings, as family members, as professionals, you name it. I want to have that person on here because they are also most likely affected by autism in some way or another. That's another goal for this podcast, and I'm excited to get people on as I get more of a routine going with it, more of a role on this. And then my final goal, I'm sure there'll be many, many more as we go along with this, is to share, essentially, this is kind of building on the second goal, to share more stories. I think there are so many stories to go around and to share, and podcasting is such a great media and forum for that. So I am excited about all this has to offer. Thank you so much for listening. For show notes, resources from this episode, and more free help with adulthood, head over to our website at autismgrownup.com/podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, help others find us by leaving a review on Apple Podcast apps or by sharing the show with a friend. We'll be back next week with even more Autism Grown Up topics. Hey, one more thing. Whether you are an autistic adult, family member, or professional, I've got some workshops, curated blog reading lists, downloadable tools, and many other resources to help you and the autistic adult in your life prepare and get a job, prepare for college, navigate the adult service system, and figure out adulting. These are all the things that I've found in my research and working with families and professionals that will help you succeed in adulthood. So if you are ready to create a successful adulthood experience, you can text the letters AGU to 555-888, and you can get immediate access to our adulthood starter kits. Check this out. Share this with your friends. I would love to hear from you and what's helping, how you're using it, how's it going. You can also follow up with that same number again to get in contact with me. Again, if you text the letters A like autism, G like grown, and U like up to 555-888.